Happy Sunday evening, everyone, and welcome into the Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Voice is a little hoarse here this evening. It's been a long week, a lot of traveling, but we learned a lot. But we're back live, baby, as we bring you an update, quick recap, of our trip in Washington. We got incredible video coming out tomorrow at 4 o'clock. As I was approaching a number of U.S. senators and congressmen, we get all kinds of feedback related to that, and that's what we're going to dive into. But what a week it was, as we want to recap and give you some information on what we learned. So with that, let's welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Varell. Hope your voice is a little better than mine here on a Sunday night. Good to see you.
It is good to see you. It's good to be back. I know we missed a couple of streams last week, but it's got a lot to update everybody on.
I had a steady flow of content, even though we were on the live stream. But if you had to put in a couple words, like your experience this week in Washington, what was it?
It was eye-opening. It was amazing to see how. I already said this. It's amazing to see how accessible the politicians were, the lawmakers were. Some of them were very well versed in safe banking and in cannabis regulatory language, and others had no clue how to really find their way out of a paper bag. If put the questions in front of them. We had some very interesting conversations, to say the least. Some very informative conversations and some very enlightening conversations. I think it was all very positive, though. And it was great to. It was more than grateful for having Don host us and really show us the inner workings of what he's doing on a daily basis.
He's got a motor of like a 16-year-old. That guy can walk and talk and be around everywhere. And he's like, "Can we grab lunch?" No. Who needs food? Like, let's just go, boys. And he basically showed us around everywhere.
He didn't realize that when I have to eat, bells go off at certain times of the day. So I stop whatever I'm doing and I need to eat food.
28,000 steps. Was that the number the one day?
It was somewhere close to that. It was, I think we were around like between 24 and 26.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, listen,
hell of a lot of steps.
We're going to dive into Washington, but we've had a busy 2 weeks, as we said earlier this week, heading into Washington. But now I'm on a plane tomorrow morning. I'm headed to Hollywood, Florida. Why? Because the biggest capital conference in the cannabis industry is being taken place at the Diplomat, which is being hosted by Benzinga, the premier media company and conference company in the space. And with that, I want to bring in their senior vice president, Elliot Lane, to tee things up, because this is going to be a big time event. Good night, or I should say good night. Good evening, sir, and good to see you.
Good evening. I feel like good night's a good greeting. Gents,
I know, right?
First off, thank you for having me on.
Really
appreciate it. It's my first time gracing the live stream and Trade to Black podcast. So I feel like a lot of goals and check marks are being given right now. Secondly, Anthony, I saw some of these posts on Twitter, man. Your hair looked phenomenal in DC.
It was
on point, man.
The comments.
What was the one?
The comments were coming, so I appreciate that. Oh, it was
CEO Paul Mitchell.
No, it was something about being ready to testify before Congress, then attend a Paul Mitchell board meeting or something like that. It was good.
Hilarious.
It was one of the better comments I've seen. It was one of the better comments I've seen in a while.
Yeah, you'll look good.
So we got to get you on here and off, because you're on a plane in the next 6-7 hours, because you've got people already down there. This is going to be a big time event. Look, 12 months ago, your conferences in Florida are always like the Super Bowl of the conference, right? The sentiment 12 months ago was pretty bleak, but 12 months later, and how quickly times can change. It started to build up last fall when we were in Chicago, and the rumors just keep on like getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We learned a lot this week in Washington, and there's a lot of different congressmen, congresswomen, and senators that are really unaware what safe banking is. I brought up rescheduling. That's not really a priority for them. But look, you've got the biggest names in the space: Kim Rivers, Boris Jordan. You've got former Senator Cory Gardner, a whole amount of the biggest names in the industry. So you've got them there for 2 full days. What can people anticipate as far as the topic of conversation will take place for the investors that are attending, and more importantly as well, the people that will be streaming this online?
There's so many things to know going into this event. First off, for us, the landscape of this event alone over the past 12 months has drastically shifted. This event 12 months ago, Jason Wild, the chairman of TerraSyn, literally got on our stage and said, well, it can't get any worse.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, first off, thanks, Jason. Much
Right.
appreciated.
Right.
Then in Chicago, our Chicago event, we do 2 of these a year.
Yep.
One is a little smaller, definitely more compact. All these executives are in one room. It's super phenomenal networking. It's more of a Midwestern, feel as opposed to the Southeast and New York feel that you get in Florida, even though both events, our second largest market is California. So do with that what you will.
Yep.
But in Chicago, it was the same week as the HHS leak, and it was the same week as safe banking making it through the Senate Banking Committee. Actually, same
Yes.
day.
Yes.
So the sentiment at that event was out of this world. It was phenomenal. So I think right now, if I'm an investor going into this event, and I'll tell you what I've been hearing is, and this is a trend that I like, is more investors are approaching this event saying they have money to deploy.
Oh,
We didn't
interesting.
see that last year.
No.
Right now, they still have to deploy it. Right. They still have to utilize it. They still have to come to the table and sign deals and be ready to go. But there's a lot of people that they've been giving me numbers. They've been giving me like, yeah, I'm looking for these types of companies. I'm looking for these opportunities. And we did not see that in 2023.
So are you going to have a good turnout for institutions that are an audience this year? Would you say?
I think it'll be I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the new investors that you see there, right? There's definitely institutions that I've never met before that are joining us. In terms of investors that were in the space for a long time, many of them are out, right? I think the biggest thing we're all waiting on is new money to come into the space, right? But it doesn't mean that there isn't money and dry powder out there. Right. And I do think that some of the main investors, Poseidons, your entourages, right? Those funds that have been around for what seems like 30,000 years.
Long time. Yeah.
Those guys are there, and they're not only there to help their portfolio companies, but they're there to, dive into how they can help grow the space at a more macro level.
Yes. Well. Yeah.
You guys have a lot of the movers and shakers up top to bottom on the as far as the conference agenda goes. Is there a certain and I mean, what we've seen in the last, let's say, 6 months is more policy making its way into like the headlines and having an emphasis on that. When you guys go to program the conference, is there a certain mix of like policy and capital markets, and then like from a programming perspective, how that really falls into place?
So it depends on who we get. Right. Okay. We won't just throw anybody up there to talk about policy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that determines on how much policy we'll have, because, Congress is in session during this event. So we won't have any active Congress people at this one, even though we normally do. Sometimes their dates just don't work. Right. However, I will say in October 8th and 9th for our fall event, Congress is not in session. So you already know I'm working on that. And then if you guys want to moderate, we can probably come up with some cool content, especially based off what you learned last week.
I'm in.
I figured you would be, man. And honestly, you're the only person doing what you're doing, right, on the media side. So, A, again, props to you, and B, it makes a lot of sense. But in terms of investment content, we always have what are investors looking for, and we go a little bit deeper, whether, what do investors need to know about hemp-derived products? Right. Everybody's talking about hemp, whether they're talking about it positively or negatively. We're going to talk about it because that's what people are clicking on.
Yes.
Right. And I think something there to, audience, if you don't know who we are, we're one of the largest media platforms in the space from a, financial media standpoint, in the sense that we reach about 50 million people a month. A year, cannabis articles, they drive about 10 million to 15 million readers on Benzinga.com. So that is who we are. We're a content engine. We come from that financial standpoint. So we're always going to present the investable opportunities such as MSOs and stocks and MSOS, right? You all cover that phenomenally as well. I've always loved your content and how active you are. And, for me right now, business in this space is absolutely one and the same as policy.
Yeah.
So we do have that content. As you said, Senator Cory Gardner will be there. Former Representative Ed Perlmutter. We'll have John Sullivan, VP at Cresco. We'll have Lauren Niehaus, Government Relations VP at TrueLeave. All 4 of those is one panel talking about what's happening right now. in the
Perfect.
space.
Well, the big thing I learned last week is just when I went to Washington with our lobbyist, Don Murphy, who comes on our podcast a lot, was the accessibility. A lot of these politicians, like you just walk into the building, you got to be ready to ask questions. But one thing I love about this conference, especially in Florida, is the fact that you've got the biggest names all in one room for 48 hours. And that's kind of the part that makes it so appealing. And everybody that obviously is in the industry makes sure that they mark that on their calendar every single year. So this is interesting, though, that, new location this year in Hollywood versus down at the Fontainebleau that you've had before in South Beach. But interesting to see that you've had some great feedback as far as new money it's actually going to be attending, which is obviously something I think our viewers will be interested in, because if you've got these rumors from Washington, and let's face it, if we do see some sort of like news pertaining to rescheduling, a lot of that new money who's in attendance this week is going to be, educated and up to speed with what to anticipate over the next few months, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, our conference in Miami is an Outlook event, right? A lot of conversations start at our event, but $20 million investments don't happen in 2 days. Right. So, a lot of due diligence has to be done. Lawyers have to get involved, auditing, blah, 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 blah. Right. But, we're the place where a lot of those deals meet. One of the largest acquisitions in the space, credits our event as a main point of their conversation. So I will say that M&A is also a huge through line for us. We always talk about M&A. We always talk about
that'll be an interesting topic too, right?
Yeah. Well, my buddy, Scott Griper from Viridian Capital, everybody's favorite M&A data archive specialist. He always joins that panel, but we're approaching it a bit differently, right? Because we all know M&A has been just trending down, right?
Yes.
So in terms of East Coast versus West Coast, right? We're looking at it differently as opposed to here's the State of the Union. We're looking at it. I mean, who's winning? Right? Like, where are people focused? Like, when they see value, where is the value?
Yes.
Right. So we always want to approach our content strategically and make sure people are getting education out of it. And if you're, looking to get into the space, ideally you leave, on Thursday with a game plan.
Yes. That's the thing. I got to ask you before I let you run. Iron Mike, is he making his way?
He's already there, my guy. So no planes this time, no water bottles this time. He's already in Florida. Mike Tyson and Ric Flair will both be speaking with Adam Wilkes, the CEO of Karma, and Javier on our team, the head of our cannabis news desk for years now, one of our heads of content. Will be leading that conversation. I am working on one more larger name that I can't say yet. I'm like 75% of the way there.
Really?
So I will say this: sign up for updates for Benzinga. There's a ticket link in the chat. Thanks to Shad and Anthony and the team here in terms of, get a discount. We'd love to have you there, or sign up for our newsletter. But if we can do it, I'll announce it tomorrow. And I don't think this type of person is speaking anywhere else. So all that said, I'm very excited about it. 5% chance it's Fergie. Thank you.
Does he live at Mar-a-Lago by chance?
He does not live at Mar-a-Lago. South Florida is where he dwells. All right. So I'll leave it there. Right. I don't, there's always, listen, if it's 99%, that 1% is still a big 1% that these people won't speak. But we're working to get you guys content that you don't see, right? Why do this every year if we can't innovate?
I hear you there.
Yeah.
Well, it should be a good venue. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait. So I will be down there probably around 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. My flight out of Detroit is at 10 a.m. and arrive into 1 o'clock, and then it's hit the ground running. So that's interesting to know that there's a lot of people are at the hotel. I was debating whether to go down Tuesday morning or tomorrow, but maybe I should network and just be down there in the
come for our reception. And I swear, if you are registered for the event, guys, take advantage of early registration, please.
Yeah.
For our sake, right? Get registered on the 15th.
There's a reception for the event tomorrow.
There is 6 to 8 p.m. The South Palm Court at the Diplomat.
Okay. Sweet. Listen, safe travels. Look forward to seeing you and the team as usual. You guys are great. And this will be a lot of fun. But hopefully you land that celeb. Hopefully in 24 hours, we're talking about who it is.
I know. Yeah, send me good vibes. But Anthony, Shad, sincerely appreciate you guys. having me on. Thank you for all you do, for taking that trip. I cannot wait for that content.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it more in Florida on the beach, gents.
We got the big one coming out tomorrow at 4:00. JD Vance approached Bernie Sanders. He was like, I support the bill. Now get out of here. Don't leave me alone. And I was like, okay.
Do you want to meet Anthony Barrow? Get out of my face.
Steve Daines approached Mitt Romney, asked him a question. At what point does he, Anthony had a great question. Do you deem cannabis as being medicine? And just walked past me. Rand Paul, though, gave me 4 minutes of his time. That was an awesome clip.
You know, I'll say this. I'm a Kentuckian. If you couldn't tell, I'm a Louisville Cardinal fan.
Yeah.
I went to the University of Kentucky, so don't tell them. But all that said, Rand Paul, when it comes to cannabis, is a pleasant surprise.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Love him.
It really is. And, obviously Mitch is proud of his farm bill, and that is what it is. But I feel like Rand is he's like, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If it was up to him, it'd be done by now.
He holds back no punches on what he how he views Chuck Schumer. But it's nice. You get the real Rand Paul and the real state of affairs in Washington. But that's great that a guy, of his stature, you got to be ready. As soon as they come out of that hearing, you got to walk and talk and be ready. But the goal is to obviously go back there once a month with Don, and I think it'd be very helpful. But I'll show you the video tomorrow with some of the clips when we see you. But in the meantime, safe travels, and we will see you with more palm trees.
Yes, safe travels to you all as well. Anthony, I got to see that hair on point.
It'll be good. It'll be good. I'll be looking. It'll be good. It'll be out in full force at the conference. I will see you in my backyard tomorrow.
All right. Yes. All right. Thanks, gents. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Elliot. Take care. Good guy. Great guy over the team at Benzinga. That is the Super Bowl, but I am very excited to see what the conference and why our viewers should actually be paying attention to this is exactly what he said, that a lot of new money is going to be attending. And as I said before, the biggest names in the industry will be in one room for 2 full days, mergers, acquisitions, potentially new money being involved within the actual space. And then you've got policymakers, are going to be there as far as conversations and taking place in Washington. And I'm pretty sure that based on our experience this week, we can provide a little direction and insight on what we experienced, right?
Yeah. I mean, Benzinga is always good. I mean, it's also good to just get in front of everybody, just see people in person.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so much of what we do is remote. It's so fragmented where everybody really is around the country. So it is good. It's a great medium and forum to just see everyone
all right,
in person.
DC recap time. Let's welcome in the play-by-play broadcaster of the Milwaukee Brewers. Bob Uecker now joins us. Bob, good to see you on, aka Guap. How are you, bud?
Doing all right. How are you guys feeling?
Still flying off or riding on a high from this week, but I know that both of you guys, I'm curious to see what your feedback is. And let's first begin. My first thorough interview was with Senator JD Vance out of Ohio, and he talked to me for 3-4 minutes. 3-4 minutes. I give that man a lot of credit for giving me the time to basically ask some interesting questions. But, Anthony, before we started recording here tonight or on the live stream, you made a point about the difference between SAFE and rescheduling and how it's a priority for these politicians when it comes to SAFE, and how rescheduling really has no understanding. Because when we asked these questions, one thing that was very, very clear is that they really had no idea what the difference between the two is, or even really any awareness about the cannabis industry for the most part, with most of the people that we spoke with.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at first. I was also very, I guess, adversarial in my thinking when we got these responses from them, kind of thinking like, oh, well, what the fuck? Like, why don't they understand rescheduling? Like, how are they conflating rescheduling with safe banking? Like, it's their job, and then took a step back, and it's not their job. It is not a senator's or a congressman's responsibility to understand rescheduling cannabis. It is not a legislative process. It's not something that comes up on their dockets or that's in their purview. It's something that doesn't come to mind whatsoever. They all knew safe banking, though. They all had an opinion on safe banking, and they were all either for or against safe banking. So that's all that matters to me as far as passing the litmus test. There were also a couple of other lawmakers that we spoke to that had very informed and I would say very mature opinions of the cannabis industry, that if there were more politicians at large that had these views and shared these views with these individuals would be a lot further along than we are right now.
Yeah. So we were staked out outside of the one hearing room where we were wanting to speak to Cory Booker. And
So we're going to start here.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh boy.
His staffer came over and just asked us who we were. We explained, and needless to say, she came back out 3 minutes later and says does not have time. However, we did not move and it stayed. So I think it was very strategic that eventually when he came out, he had a cell phone. You'll see that clip on the podcast that we're posting tomorrow at 4:00. And just he does not want to speak. He can't do the interview right now. And I think for the most part, there was a lot of politicians that we ran into, at least allowed us to get one question in. He eventually made his way back over to his head office where you were, Guap, hanging out with Jim McMahon and Ricky Williams.
No big deal.
I know, but what went down there and what was your experience when you were there?
Sure. Yeah. I think we already touched on the access standpoint. We made a list of, dare I say, targets that we wanted to talk to, and the speed at which we were crossing these targets off was quick. Cory Booker was a big one. And, we had some people on our team. We were fortunate enough to be brought together by the great DC Don Murphy with a team that included Jim McMahon and Ricky Williams. And the play worked amazing, right? We were walking right up to senators. It didn't matter what color tie they had on, red or blue, saying, hey, you want to meet Ricky and Jim? And they were like, absolutely. And they came right over and started talking to us, and the trap was set, and we started talking about cannabis. Booker was no different. We had a person on our team that was friends with the chief of staff and I think as he was walking by you guys, he might have been coming our way.
But did he want to talk about cannabis with these guys?
Not really. I mean, I think we got our points in, but then he steered the conversation towards football. You can read into that. We can quite a bit if you want to, but again, these are busy folks with worrying about 100 different bills. And I think some of the folks at the highest levels, I'm talking about Schumer and Booker here, are playing games.
What are you doing?
Playing games with this.
Cory Booker doesn't get off the hook with having 100 different things.
No, he's playing games with this issue.
Cory Booker plays the cannabis card a lot. Cory Booker pushes cannabis legislation that's hollow a lot of the time, and Cory Booker uses cannabis as part of his agenda.
Yes.
The fact that Cory Booker wasn't willing and he was the only person that flat out avoided us, like was actually too afraid to confront us and engage, kind of blew my mind.
I know it did.
Like we had very conservative red senators and congressmen and congresswomen that at least engaged and gave us the time of day and said something. He refused to come out of a room, for God's sakes.
I know he did.
For 20 minutes. And then goes out the back door looking at the ground on a cell phone that wasn't even on.
He met with Ricky and Jim in their staffers did in a back room for quite some time. And then we got to meet him in the halls. I just think a lot of these government employees, as well as Cory Booker, we saw it. They don't want to go on the record when you put a recorded microphone in their face. I agree with you. We could do a whole show on like how Schumer and Booker are actually really playing games with this issue, and we're not happy about it. But there's a lot of representatives that we talk to on both sides of the aisle who feel the same way as us, actually. So there's a lot to get into. But starting with Booker, we could go all day on that one.
Ben Lubin writes, did he give you his deer in the headlights look? No, it was.
No, he didn't give us any look. He literally looked at the floor.
He was
You'll see the video. You'll see the video.
Yeah. I was let down, to say the least.
Paul Rand, though. Senator Rand.
Paul.
Paul Rand.
It's been a long week.
I need sleep. He was incredible, but like I said, was very direct, straight to the point. He talked about how many times Schumer has dropped the ball and how this definitely needs change based on the support. I love talking to him because arguably out of all the people that we spoke to, he's probably got the biggest name, but he doesn't hold anything back. And I think we can appreciate that when it comes to a lot of politicians, because some of the recent questions that I ask, you ask a question in typical politician style, they'll make sure that they answer it for 2 consecutive minutes without a follow-up question, and then they're one and gone. But Steve, Senator Daines was good. Congressman Dave Joyce that we ran into right at the very end. We were exhausted, tired. That one was phenomenal, but we'll have that as well tomorrow. But, one of the other things that grabbed my attention too with Senator Vance was the fact that there was wording of safe banking he felt was kind of like a gateway for addiction and, people that are trafficking basically fentanyl. And
right.
I wish I could have had him on for 20 more minutes to say, like, explain to me like what you're referring to and how that makes any sense whatsoever. But, we got some key questions out, but it was just, it was an eye opener. But here's the encouraging thing. This is not a one and done for us. We're not just going to show up and then show up again 6 months later. The idea is that we make an effort to do this at least once a month, and just bring more awareness. But those were some of the big takeaways for me. Go ahead. I know you want to say something, Guap.
Yeah, what the people at audience at home, and I consider myself one of them, the cannabis investor, right? They have to understand Don Murphy. Well, one, he connected us with just all the right people, brought in a whole other team.
Yeah.
It was amazing. He was stoked. And I mean this in the sense that he's been doing this solo for years.
I know.
Suddenly he's rolling with a squad like 10 deep with, NFL players and us. And so he suddenly was having conversations with people he couldn't get. He is going one after another, hearing after hearing after hearing, trying to find all the people who are no's on safe banking and turn them into yeses. And this is the play we were running, and he was loving every minute of it.
I love his line.
Please come back. If you can't get their vote unless you get their attention. And we were getting their attention. Our conversion rate was high.
How about?
And so I felt like, we're cannabis investors, but Shad sounded a lot like an advocate. Guap and Anthony sounded a lot like advocates for the industry all of a sudden. And it was extremely empowering and also mind-blowing that no one's run this play before.
Don was the best. Good afternoon, Senator. How are you? Would be better if I could get a vote on safe banking.
And it didn't matter if he was from Kansas or California. He was after it.
Yeah, it was. But I think the thing, like I even asked Jim McMahon and Ricky Williams this, okay? Jim told me, he's just like, there sure is a lot of celebrities right now in North America that want to consume the product, but they don't want to get it behind it. They don't want to put their name attached to it. They're still very much in the closet. And I'm like, why? Why are they still in the closet when we look at this industry, the way it's different and how we keep talking about society in general is just accepting it more? And like, what is it? How many states, when you talk about medicinal and recreational, is it over 85, 90%? It's legalized now?
That have some sort of cannabis program? Yes.
I think that's what's got to happen.
That was one of the most surprising things to me as well, is the fact that a lot of these politicians, like off the record, they're like, yeah, I'll vote for it, but I can't talk about it.
I know.
Like, it's not a good, it's not like I've got a primary coming up, or I've got like I've got to start running back for office. And I mean, they were like, I'm for it. I'm for safe banking. I'll vote for it, but I can't publicly speak about it.
Yeah.
That was surprising to me as well.
Yes.
Which isn't a bad thing, because then it just makes you really think, like, you really can't take a lot of these guys at face value, because you don't know what they're saying and you don't know how they're voting. And it could be, you could have guys out there that we think are super conservative that won't vote for cannabis whatsoever. Meanwhile, that's only what they're saying outward facing. And when push comes to shove, they're going to vote to get that bill passed.
Good comment from Creative Dog Media. You guys may have been the most sane folks in DC that day. Did you guys get the feeling when you were walking around there that the system's broke? Like, it's just crazy as to, I don't want to go that deep, but it's an interesting. President Trump, when he was there, look, I was in real estate, but when I got into politics, these guys are real nasty. I cannot imagine, playing that game, being in that industry day in and day out. That would be a grind.
But that's the thing. It's not an industry. It's an institution. We shouldn't be talking about it. We shouldn't be talking about it like an industry.
True.
or thinking about it like an industry. That's why it's so corrupt. That's why it doesn't work.
It's a game within a game within a game. As Anthony kind of
what I thought was so funny was that all the politicians walking around with their little posses. They all had their staffer, their comms person, someone holding their bag. Like there was like 3 to 6
doing the real work.
How many politicians did we see that were probably 85 and older and with a 20-year-old staffer?
Yeah.
That's because I have friends who have been staffers who actually write the bills.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones doing the actual work. You got the face, you got the slick politician playing games, but then you have people who actually need to do the work, write and read the bills.
I know.
And the dynamics that Congressman Mast alluded to are actually pretty eye-opening as well. When he was like, well, I represent 400,000 people in my district, but Senator X represents 40 million. I mean, the amount of power and influence and the way that you think about how someone like that from a congressional standpoint goes about their business versus somebody from a senatorial standpoint goes about their business. It really does give you a lot of insight into how they're thinking.
Joe agrees
and how they have to act.
Joe agrees. They're great to hear from you. Got to break the stigma. Indeed. Paisley.
We'll be seeing Joe at Benzinga, actually.
Oh, is he going to be down there? Perfect.
Joe's a South Florida guy. He'll be at Benzinga.
Yep.
Nice.
Paisley writes, Guap for president. Somebody also made a comment on TDR swag. We are, just for some of the people who are watching, I have to order a bunch of new swag. I did promise some hats and sweaters. I have made an order in, so that'll be coming in the next week or two. But I just want to give people just a quick update. All right. I think that's it for now. Go ahead, Guap.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, you know, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but all these predictions we've gotten on Twitter about when SAFE's going to be passed and kind of like they've all been wrong. Yeah, exactly. People want to know, is SAFE going to pass? Like you guys talked to like maybe you changed a lot of no's to yeses, but like, so is it going to pass though? I think what my takeaway is if you ask 5 different people, senators, congressmen, you will get 5 different answers, some of which were really thought through. You know, these tend to be co-sponsors and people who have, you know, actually wrote the bill.
Yeah.
But they're talking about how they're going to attach it to another bill. We just got news while we were in DC that it could be attached to a crypto. We'll talk more about that. Yeah, stable coin. You know, so that's an approach. You'll talk to other folks who just say, I don't see it happening this year. And you're like, why? And they don't really know why. They just kind of say, because the Democrats aren't going to get it done. You're playing a game.
If SAFE gets attached to the stablecoin bill and not the FAA, I'm just going to say it now. It's going through.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Senator Gildebrand, you've got Senator Lummis. I don't know if a lot of people have looked into actually what the stablecoin bill is. What this does is this gives depository and non-depository financial institutions the ability to create their own stablecoins, tokenized treasuries, and it's what traditional finance wants.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to put it out there. This is the equivalent of the Bitcoin ETFs going through the SEC. You saw what Daddy Larry wanted. Daddy Larry got. The big boys and the powers that be, JP Morgan, Bank of America, BlackRock, they want this stablecoin bill. They need this stablecoin bill. They want to put the traditional finance sector on Ethereum. And that's what this stablecoin bill would essentially produce the guardrails for the traditional finance world to start transacting with stablecoins and within the blockchain. If they do get SAFE passed to this, or if they do get SAFE attached to this thing's probably going to pass without having to go it alone.
You wonder if it will.
We got the votes. That's for sure. I mean, we talked to a lot of folks.
And it won't need the votes.
It won't need the
votes anymore.
If it even was a standalone.
Yeah, you attach this to this digital currency and the stablecoin bill, the votes don't matter. None of the language matters. All that matters is if we can piggyback onto that and kind of failing upwards into a win, it would be huge because this bill's probably going to go through, no questions asked.
Yeah. I will say from some of the conversations we had too pertaining to rescheduling that one thing that is clear, and I don't want to speculate too much, but the Democratic administration and the Biden administration are very much, it's not their decision, but they definitely want this to be rescheduled all in an effort as what Earl Blumenauer said a couple weeks ago, just to basically attract the younger voter leading into the election. That is a major priority for them and their strategy. So do the math. I don't know what's going to happen or how that all works, but I asked the question to Don the other day, like if the DEA were to push back, even though there's overwhelming amount of information to have it rescheduled, then what happens? And who knows? But we spoke to some interesting people that put a couple of different scenarios in front of us, but they made it very clear that it's important that the Biden administration wants this to be rescheduled all in an effort to obtain a lot of those younger voters. So take it for what it's worth. Okay, tomorrow, 4:00. It is probably our most important content piece in Washington. We are going to be traveling. So at 4:00 Eastern time, we will have a pre-record, but this video is probably going to supersede any live stream that we've ever done. It includes all the different senators, congressmen, and women that I had the conversations with that we highlighted. Look at that picture, Mitch. Dave Joyce there in the middle, CEO of Paul Mitchell,
Look at those
along
red
with
eyes.
Don Murphy, myself, and Guap. But that is going down tomorrow at 4:00. Tuesday, Tuesday I had a very interesting interview. Why am I drawing a blank? The congressman from California I spoke with.
You in Oregon? Merkley?
No. We were in his
Cardenas?
office with Jim and Ricky.
Oh, Cardenas. Representative Cardenas.
Correct. That was a great interview. So that's going to drop down on Tuesday. Anthony, you and I are going to be actually remote in Florida on Wednesday for the live stream. And then Thursday, we're going to drop a behind the scenes documentary of Don Murphy and what he does on a day in and day out basis, just to give everyone kind of a better idea as to why he's such an important piece to this industry as far as pushing the narrative forward. But all the things that he tweets about and sends pictures and videos up on the steps at Capitol Hill, we'll walk through the hallways and give you an idea what this man does every single day. So that'll be an interesting piece. And then I'll be back at the studio come Friday morning, and we'll have our live stream again at 11 a.m. with Dan the Chartman to talk about how the week performed. So lots of stuff going on. We're moving and shaking, getting lots of information for you, the viewer. So hope you enjoy it as well. Smash that like button, leave comments, leave any kind of feedback pertaining to all the content we're producing. Any questions that you want us to ask while we're in Benzinga, who you want us to talk to, let us know right now. As usual, log on to thedalesreport.com and subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter. We've had some really interesting information over the last week or so. But yeah, we will have even more information pertaining to obviously our Washington trip, and then what we're hearing basically this week at the Benzinga Conference. Look at that picture, or I should say t-shirt. What is that?
It's my July 4th shirt. Oh, we're wrapping it up.
Mitch
Can't
is
get
like,
the vote unless we get their attention.
All right.
We got the hook.
Have a good night.
Get the hook.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your